Okay, so here we are on the part 4 of Carl Jung's theory. So, Jung's methods of investigation. So, number 1, we have this word association test. So, this is one of the tests or um, how we investigate a personality using Carl Jung's theory as a theoretical framework. So he originally used the technique as early as 1903 when he was a young psychiatric assistant at Bergholtz and he lectured on the word association test during his trip with Freud to the United States in 1909. So dito sa word association test, this is a projective test kasi wala siyang let's say wala siyang objective measurement, wala siyang interpretation talaga na matatawag nating standardized and more on subjective interpretation talaga siya. So, this is to uncover the feeling tone complexes, diba? So, talagang projective siya. And then, this is based on the principle that complexes create measurable emotional responses. So, halimbawa, when you say mother, so kung ano yung mga complexes na meron yung tao na yun, dun sa word na mother, lalabas at lalabas dito sa word association test. Kasi i-associate niya yung mother dun sa depende sa kung ano yung mga na-experience niya sa nanay ng iba, sa mga nabasa niya tungkol sa nanay, sa pagiging nanay, at kung ano-ano pang experiences about the mother. So, in administering the test, Jung typically used a list of about 100 stimulus words chosen and arranged to elicit an emotional reaction. He instructed the person to respond to each stimulus word with the first word that came to mind. And then Jung recorded each verbal response. Time taken to make a response. Siyempre, record niya lahat ng mga sagot, ano yung mga response. For example, yun nga, mother, and then someone would answer nurturing, caring, loving, or some may answer um, destructive, liar, uncaring, pwede rin, no? And then yung time, kung gaano siya kabilis mag-respond or medyo natagalan mag-respond, i-jot down mo yun, how many seconds or minutes for her to answer or to respond. And then yung rate of breathing, no? Um, Mabilis ba, mabagal, kalmado ba, or tense, and galvanic skin response. Usually, he would repeat the experiment to determine test-retest consistency. So, after 3 months, 6 months, ulitin para lang malaman kung consistent ba yung kanyang result. Okay? Yan. As for the dream analysis, meron din siyang ganito at like Freud, the purpose of the Jungian dream interpretation is to uncover elements from the personal and collective unconscious and to integrate them into consciousness in order to facilitate the process of self-realization because Carl Jung believes in the progression and regression principle, di ba? Yung especially in terms of dreams, that these dreams have a goal, have a teleological influence wherein yun nga sinasabi ng mga dreams natin na hindi lang ito dahil meron ka mga desires or wishes na hindi mo natupad sa past mo. That's why it influences your present behavior, but also yung dreams according to Jungian dream interpretation, uh, ina-uncover nito yung mga ano to, yung mga desires mo din and wishes kung papaano mo sila matutupad, no? Hindi lang yung causality na kaya ka ganyan kasi ganito dati, may dream kang ganito, may desire kang ganito, may wish kang ganito, or may unconscious motive kang ganito. But here, um, tinatry nilang interpret na ito yung pwede mong gawin para para matupad mo yung goal na yun. So, it's more on, yun nga, teleological aspect. Ayun. to process the self-realization. Kasi kailangan talaga mabalance yun. So, yung mga nasa unconscious, again, in-integrate siya sa consciousness para mas maintindihan mo yung sarili mo by means of the dreams. Then another one, another method of investigation in Carl Jung's theory is the active imagination. This method requires a person to begin with any impression, a dream image, a vision, a picture, or a fantasy, and to concentrate until the impression begins to move. And the person must follow these images to wherever they lead and then courageously face these autonomous images and freely communicate with them. So this is to reveal archetypal images emerging from the unconscious. So parang dito sa active imagination, it is highly similar to Freud's free association. No, doon nga lang more on words, no, more on phrases, sentences, whatever comes to mind. No, sasabihin mo lang, kwento mo lang, ganyan. But here, kailangan mong mag-umpisa sa pag-i-imagine ng something. Pwedeng imahe, pwedeng picture, pwedeng sound, pwedeng kahit ano. No? And then, from that image na ma-picture mo, ma-imagine mo, kailangan mo siyang pagalawin. No? Kailangan mo siyang, yun nga, to move, di ba? Kailangan maging active. Yan. So, kung saan man pupunta yung image mo na yun, hayaan mo lang. Kasi, ibig sabihin nun, unti-unti siyang pupunta doon sa kaila-ilaliman ng pagkatao mo, which is yun nga, yung unconscious part, and then, kailangan matapang kang harapin kung ano man yung mga makita mo along the way habang naglalakbay yung imahe na nasa isip mo. So, that is active imagination. Kasi, that could be a passageway to uncover yung mga complexes na meron ka, yung mga yung mga unconscious na feelings na kailangan mo i-resolve sa present life. So here is another narrative. In 1961, Jung wrote about his experiences with active imagination during his midlife confrontation with the unconscious. When I look back upon it all today and consider what happened to me during the period of my work on the fantasies, it seems as though a message had come to me with overwhelming force. There were things in the images which concerned not only myself but many others also. It was then that I ceased to belong to myself alone, ceased to have the right to do so. From then on, my life belonged to the generality. It was then that I dedicated myself to service of the psyche. I loved it and hated it, but it was my greatest wealth. My delivering myself over to it, as it were, was the only way by which I could endure my existence and live it as fully as possible. Okay, so si Carl Jung mismo, nagkaroon siya ng active imagination during his midlife confrontation with the unconscious. Kasi dito, nakausap niya yung kanyang anima. Okay? Yung the woman within himself. Nakausap niya and then tinry niya i-conquer din yung kanyang shadow, no? So, sinasabi niya dito na yun nga, mas naging introverted kasi siya dito, nag-introspect siya sa sarili niya, marami siyang concern sa sarili niya, kasi nga, di ba, ano siya, parang he lived as only child, and then, hindi naman masyadong close sa kanya yung tatay at nanay niya, and then yung nanay niya laging wala, no? And, ayun, so, tapos kaya siya nagkaroon ng dalawang ano din, di ba, ng dalawang babae, may asawa siya, and then meron siyang mistress, kasi nga, Yung isa para sa number 1 personality, yung isa sa number 2 personality. So, talagang medyo ano siya, medyo magulo, parang gano'n yung kanyang buhay, yung personality niya, hindi niya maintindihan yung kanyang sarili. That's why he needed to have this kind of introspection talaga during the midlife age. Kasi nga, ito na yung age na kung saan medyo papalapit na dun sa death, 'di ba? Kailangan medyo may magbago na sa kanya, mabalance na niya yung kanyang personality, ayan, and then, ayun. So, the moment na na-discover niya yung kanyang self, yun yung tinuturing niya greatest wealth niya talaga, no, na lubusan niyang ma-understand, no, yung kanyang self, yung kanyang existence. Ayan. So, malalim, no? Malalim talaga yung kanyang pagkatao. Alright? So, okay. So, for the psychotherapy of this theory, there are 4 basic approaches to therapy representing 4 developmental stages in the history of psychotherapy. So, one, syempre, merong cathartic method. Of course, ito ay ginamit ni Joseph Brewer sa kanyang, yung sa hypnosis, no? Na kung saan after being hypnotized, the person can go to his or her unconscious self and then be able to express fully the emotions and feelings, no, that were gathered from the past, and that would be a catharsis. Yung once you're able to express freely those uh, unconscious feelings. Yan, cathartic method. So, ginamit din niya ni Sigmund Freud and dun sa kanyang free association technique, di ba? And of course, ginagamit din ni Carl yung sa kanyang psychotherapy, the cathartic method. Ito yung yung actually ginagamit pa rin siya hanggang ngayon. This is very applicable to present because sometimes may mga pagkakataon na along the therapy or along the counseling process, biglang makakagain ng insight or discovery yung client, no, sa sarili niya. Parang bigla niyang marirealize, no, na, okay, kaya pala gano'n. Kaya pala ako ganito, kasi ganyan, di ba? Parang bigla siya nagkakaroon na ng self-realizations along the process. Hindi mo sasabihin sa kanya kahit alam mo na, di ba? Minsan gano'n. Hindi mo ipinpoint kasi kailangan sa kanila manggaling. Sa patient mismo or sa client mismo manggaling yung self-realization. Okay? And then interpretation, ayan, kasama rin yan sa therapeutic process. Pwede nating interpret, di ba, yung kanyang nararamdaman, nararanasan, based sa kanyang experience, pero not totally na parang i-identify mo para sa kanya or de-define mo para sa kanya yung nangyayari. Kailangan sa kanya manggaling, no, yung pagkakaintindi. And then, we educate the patient as social beings, of course, kasi doon nagkakaroon ng problema kapag hindi niya kayang mag-adjust sa kanyang environment, no? Hindi niya kayang mag-interact sa people around her or him, doon kadalasan nagkakaroon ng problem. So, kailangan maintindihan ng mga client natin na tayo, lahat ay social beings, na kailangan natin ng ibang tao to survive and to live. And then, transformation, dito naman, Carl Jung meant that the therapist must first be transformed into a healthy human being. Ayan. So, preferably by undergoing psychotherapy. So, kailangan daw mismo na yung therapist ay transformed na. No? Kailangan siya muna ay maging healthy human being bago siya makapagbigay ng therapy to other clients. Ayan. So, kaya nag-undergo din sila ng psychotherapy. Kaya nga sina Carl Jung, Freud, Adler, di ba? Sila nagte-therapy sa bawat isa. Si Klein, di ba? Si Anna Freud. The ultimate purpose of Jungian therapy is to help neurotic patients to become healthy and to encourage healthy people to work independently toward self-realization. So, pag sinabing neurotic dito kay Carl Jung, ito yung parang, Sa present ngayon, pag sinabi natin neurotic, it means emotionally unstable. No, it doesn't mean na you are mentally ill, no? Hindi naman. Kumbaga medyo nagkakaroon lang ng maladjustment or maladaptiveness sa pakikitungo sa ibang tao because you are emotional, no? Highly emotional. You cannot regulate your anger, your fear, your sadness. That's why it's difficult for you to interact with other people. So, kailangan daw, yun yung tinutulungan natin for them to regulate, for them to minimize, or to balance, no, yung kanilang mga high emotions. Ayan. And to encourage, no, once they're healthy, to encourage them, the healthy people, na mag-work independently, maging individual, di ba? Magkaroon ng self-realization. Kaya kapag sa mga yung mga schizophrenia patients, yung mga totally out of reality na mental disorders, nahirapan na sila mag-self-realize. Kasi hindi na nila ma-integrate yung consciousness, unconsciousness nila. And they are living now in their own fantasy world. So, yun na yung mahirap ng hindi lang basta neurotic yun, they are also considered as psychotic kasi nga, they have hallucinations, delusions, di ba? That are not anymore perceived in reality, and they believe that those hallucinations and delusions actually exist in their own world. Okay, so as for the related research, ito yung sinasabi ko, no, na kanina na isa sa mga inventory or personality skills or tests na dinevelop based sa theory ni Carl Jung. So this is the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator, the most frequently used measure of Jung's personality types, and is often used by school counselors to direct students toward rewarding avenues of study. Actually, meron ito sa online. I don't know if you know the website. Ano nga ba yun? Pag tinype mo yung 16 personality test, lalabas yan. Hindi nga iba yung tawag yung 16 personality, but hindi siya, actually iba pa yung 16 personality factor. Yun yung kina McGraw and Costa, that is based from the theory of the Big Five, no? Yung Big Five personality traits. Dun yun galing. Pero kasi ito yung galing doon kay Jung, no? Na mga attitude, yung introversion and extraversion, at saka yung four functions: sensing, thinking, feeling, and intuiting. Ayan. So, the MBTI is a self-report measure with items that assess each of the 8 Jungian personality types outlined in Table 4.1, page 126 in the book of Feist and Feist. So those who do best in certain professions are those whose personality type matches closest with those already in the profession. So sabi dito, yung MBTI actually ay ginagamit din sa industrial setting to make assessment, no, kung ano yung mga nababagay na trabaho para sa personality mo. Kasi yung mga personality type dito sa Myers-Briggs Type Indicator ay nagmamatch doon sa mga tao na nandoon na sa ganoong klaseng profession. So, kaya highly reliable and valid talaga yung MBTI. Kaya gamit na gamit talaga siya sa mga industrial setting and also to school setting para din ma-direct natin, ma-guide yung mga students on what career path they will take upon finishing the course. Alright, so for the summary, the concept of humanity of Carl Jung's analytical psychology or personality, ayan, sabi niya, neither pessimist nor optimist, hindi rin determinist nor purposive, Kasi nga, ano nga opposition principle, di ba? Naniniwala ang theory ni Carl Jung sa past and then the future. Yan, hindi naman porke ganun ka sa past ay wala ka ng pag-asa, so you can still change for the better, you can still fulfill your potential, your fullest potential. Ayan. And then people are motivated partly by conscious thoughts, partly by images from the personal unconscious, no, yung mga personal experiences mo, and partly by latent memory traces inherited from their ancestral past. So, meron ding part, yung mga medyo hindi mo na masyadong maintindihan o yun nga, may mga part ng sarili mo na ang hirap ipaliwanag kasi nga galing pa yon sa mga kananunuan mo. Okay? Hindi lang sa personal experience, pati yung mga experience ng mga ancestors mo. So, yan. Partly. Okay? And then, motivation comes from both causal and teleological factors. So, unlike Sigmund Freud's theory, more on causal, di ba? Kay Carl Jung, in-emphasize din niya yung motivation of our behavior coming from teleological. No? Kumbaga, you are pulled by the future forces. Kaya ganyan yung behavior mo kasi ito yung gusto mong mangyari. And also, pwede rin kaya ganyan yung behavior mo kasi ganito yung nangyari sa'yo before. Okay? And then, each person is a composition of opposing forces. Ayan, ganyan talaga. Opposition principle. Laging may contrast. Yan ba? Past, present, anima, animus, ano yun, yung introversion, extroversion, persona, shadow, di ba? So, lahat talaga, we are composed of opposition forces. Kaya ang hirap, di ba? Hindi mo alam kung ano bang gagawin mo, di ba? Nasa gitna ka ng dalawang naghihilahang puwersa. Kaya ang hirap i-balanse ng sarili. Pero yun nga yung goal ng tao, according to Carl Jung, para maging healthy tayo psychologically, kailangan mabalanse natin yung mga puwersa na yan. The various complexes and archetypes, okay? Again, complex came from the personal, di ba, unconscious, and the archetypes came from the collective unconscious. Cast their spell over people and are responsible for many of their words and actions and most of their dreams and fantasies. So, dun talaga, no? Most of our words and actions came from these complexes and archetypes. Ordinarily, a person who has achieved self-realization has reached middle life, yan, and has lived successfully through the stages of childhood and youth. Okay, so dun lang natin masasabi na na-achieve mo ang self-realization if you are reaching the middle life age or period of development. And kung napagtagumpayan mo daw yung stages of your childhood and youth. So, ibig sabihin, yung mga tao na may edad na, then medyo parang nag-iisip bata or medyo nasa regression siya, hindi siya nagmamature. So, maybe he or she hasn't achieved self-realization yet. Diba? Kasi nga, kailangan mas-successful mo yun no? Mapagtagumpayan mo yung stages ng childhood and youth. The collective unconscious, which is responsible for so many actions, is part of our biological inheritance. Okay? So, ito yung counterpart nung kay Sigmund Freud na sinasabi ko na phylogenetic endowment. And so, same yan. Although, hindi naman masyadong in-emphasize yun ni Sigmund Freud, no, yung phylogenetic endowment, but Carl Jung continued and emphasized it more in his theory, yung collective unconscious. Kasi nga, pag hindi mo na talaga maipaliwanag, wala siya sa experience mo, hindi mo naman siya na-experience o naranasan in your whole life, maybe it's part of your collective unconscious. Rated high on similarities among people, no? Very obvious dun sa MBTI na we are grouped according to types. Yan, kaya more on similarities and low on individual differences.